Okay, let's unpack this. We have a monumental stack of sources, biographies, financial reports, interviews, cultural analysis, all pointing toward one modern phenomenon. Right, Rodney Reynolds.
Yeah, a real phenomenon.
We are diving into this material to answer, well, a simple but pretty profound question, I think.
Exactly. We're looking beyond just the actor, born October 23, 1976. The mission today is to define the exact trajectory, from a wisecracking sitcom star to this huge entrepreneur and producer, and figure out how that persona he built connects these, well, seemingly disparate multi-billion-dollar enterprises.
Because the scale of this career shift is just, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. The source material confirms his film work alone has grossed, what, $6.6 billion worldwide?
Yeah, $6.6 billion.
And financially, he's not just a successful actor, he's like an institution. He was the world's second highest paid actor back in 2020, pulling in a documented $71.5 million that year. And he did it again in 2024, earning a reported $85 million.
And that second number, the 2024 one, is particularly telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it really encapsulates the success on the film side. The Canadian-American actor known for his comedy, his superhero roles, but it's also benefiting massively from his business exits.
Right, the two streams feeding into one massive river of income.
Precisely.
So here's the big question for you, the learner listening right now. How did the guy who was, mostly known for doing college frat comedy, how did he pivot to being the owner of gin companies, telecom providers, and maybe his most beloved venture, a Welsh soccer team?
Yeah, Rex.
We're going to find out what specific decisions and, I guess, parts of his identity allowed him to transform himself into this leveraged brand.
Okay, so you really can't understand that self-aware persona without understanding the foundation it was built on. Let's start right at the beginning. Reynolds was born and raised in Vancouver, spending time in the Kitsilano neighborhood, and also Vanier, Ontario, coming from an Irish descent, Catholic upbringing, and the sources immediately point to a pretty complex domestic environment. His father, James Chester Reynolds, held a very serious kind of disciplined job. He served as a Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman, the RCMP,
right,
before eventually becoming a foods wholesaler. His mother, Tamara Lee, worked in retail sales. Sort of different worlds there.
There's also a clear history of, public life in the family, too. His paternal grandfather, Chester Reynolds, actually served in the Legislative Assembly of Alberta way back in the 1940s.
Interesting.
But the emotional core of his early life, according to pretty much all the sources, was defined by friction. A lot of friction.
Yeah, that friction seemed to center on his relationship with his father and also with his three older brothers. He often described his position in the family not just as the youngest sibling, but as a moving target.
A moving target.
Wow, which really suggests constant activity, maybe conflict, probably a lot of roughhousing.
Sure.
He did, however, contrast this sometimes by saying those same brothers were his protectors, specifically against his father, with whom he had a really challenging and eventually quite estranged relationship.
That whole dynamic, the moving target who needed protection but also developed this quick wit maybe as a defense mechanism, that feels incredibly important for understanding his later comedy style, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Which is often based on those quick, self-deprecating kind of counterattacks.
Totally. The sources definitely suggest that this internal conflict helped fuel his early need for, a persona, something to navigate that environment. And moving into his education, you see some instability maybe mirroring that dynamic. He was involved in acting from age 13, but ironically, he actually failed his acting classes as a teenager.
He failed acting? That's pretty funny.
Yeah, perhaps resisting the formal structure of performance, or maybe just not connecting with it then.
His real education, as he's put it, seems to have happened during the day jobs he held. He worked as a busboy and spent night shifts at a local grocery store in Vancouver, sometimes working until 3 a.m.
Right. And he credits those blue-collar coworkers as being, quote, the funniest people on earth. He called them some of my biggest impressions as a performer.
So it wasn't the academic training that shaped him initially?
Not at all. It was the raw, observational comedy of his environment, the people he was around.
And then there's that famous incident, the one that sort of forced a major life change, his expulsion from Prince of Wales Secondary.
Ah, yes, the car incident.
For stealing a teacher's car. He eventually did graduate, though, from Kitsilano Secondary in 1994, graduating alongside another future actor, Joshua Jackson.
Right, JJ. That expulsion, though, it seems like it must have been a wake-up call, or at least a signal that, the path he was on wasn't sustainable.
Sure seems like it.
At 19, he briefly abandoned acting entirely. He enrolled at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. It was only after a peer, another actor named Chris William Martin, recognized his natural talent and really encouraged him to move south to L.A. Only then did he make that move.
And that risk leaving stability, such as it was, to chase this completely unpredictable career, that really feels like the first major entrepreneurial decision of his life, doesn't it?
Absolutely. A huge leap of faith
Yeah.
based on someone else's belief in him, too.
Yeah.
And that decision, that leap, it changed everything. It pivoted him onto the, the career ladder proper.
Right.
He can track his professional start back to 1991.
Okay.
On the Canadian teen soap opera, Hillside, it was called 15 in the U.S., he played Billy Simpson, a character who, interestingly, initially coped with family issues and romantic rejection by turning to bullying.
Huh. And his feature film debut was Ordinary Magic in '93, but his real breakthrough role, the one people probably remember first, was as the medical student Michael Bergen in the sitcom Two Guys and a Girl.
Right. Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place originally. That ran from 1998 to 2001.
Yep.
And critics, even then, were immediately impressed. Variety, looking back, recognized that his, quote, talent and charisma were apparent, and that his star quality was already in place.
Wow, early praise.
Even early on, yeah. He had that sort of undefinable presence, which he was already honing in smaller roles, like appearance on The X-Files back in '96.
Okay, so this success really launched what we can call the romantic comedy phase, right? Roughly 2002 to 2009.
Definitely.
And this era became this defining period of, like, commercial success, but also coupled with a lot of critical skepticism.
Oh, yeah. National Lampoon's Van Wilder in 2002 is the perfect example.
Totally.
Massive box office success. It completely cemented his typecast as that fast-talking, slightly crude, comic lead. But it got panned by critics. Absolutely panned.
But the height of the commercial side of that phase was probably The Proposal in 2009.
For sure. The sources confirm its massive box office success, and a lot of that was driven by the palpable on-screen chemistry he had with Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, they were great together.
That film really proved he could carry a major Hollywood picture.
Yeah.
No question.
What's fascinating, though, is how even then he was simultaneously trying to pivot out of that typecasting. He was taking these unusual roles that explored, like, deeper psychological stuff.
Right, not just the easy comedies. Think of Just Friends in 2005.
Oh, yeah, the fat suit movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where he wore the fat suit to portray Chris Brander, the high schooler, stuck in the friend zone. I mean, it was still a comedy, but it required a real commitment to physical transformation, not just showing up and being witty.
True.
And then there was The Nines in 2007, that complex sci-fi film.
I remember that one. Very strange.
Very strange. He played 3 distinct characters, Gary, Gavin, and Gabriel, exploring these themes of reality, identity, narrative control. I mean, these are not the standard choices for an actor trying to maximize his commercial stock.
Not at all.
These felt like attempts to prove artistic range, to show he could do more.
So that really sets the stage for the next period, which the sources describe as kind of tumultuous genre experimentation, career fluctuations from about 2010 to 2015. He's deliberately pushing against his own brand here.
And this is where his commitment, his willingness to take risks, truly showed. I mean, look at Buried in 2010.
Oh, Buried. Incredible film.
The Spanish-American survival thriller. He spends the entire runtime confined to a coffin. Just him.
The preparation for that must have been intense, psychologically and physically.
Unbelievable. And the sources confirm it was a critical triumph. Rotten Tomatoes called it a nerve-wracking display of his unique talent. It proved he could command an entire film just through voice and emotion, stripped of all action, all dialogue partners.
Just raw performance.
Exactly. And he didn't stop with the thrillers. He embraced the bizarre with The Voices in 2014.
Right, the black comedy where he talks to his pets.
Yeah, a black comedy thriller where he plays a schizophrenic character, and he also voices his character's hallucinated pets, the dog and the cat. He actually described it as, quote, one of my favorite movies I've ever done.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't do well commercially.
Yeah, even though he lamented that it never really got its day in court commercially, as he put it, he was proud of the work.
And then British GQ called his performance in the comedy drama Mississippi Grind in 2015, where he plays a professional gambler, his best performance in years.
Mm-hmm. So he was clearly chasing prestige, chasing artistic respect during this period, trying to break out of the box.
But we cannot discuss this era without addressing the superhero shadows looming over it. He was chasing the franchise money, obviously, but kept stumbling.
Big stumbles. Blade. Trinity, back in 2004, was a box office success, sure, but critically negative. And while he gained, 24 pounds of muscle in 3 months for the role of Hannibal King,
Yeah, he got ripped for that.
the role itself didn't really elevate him. It was kind of a cartoonish part. Then came the major, notorious failure, Green Lantern in 2011.
Ugh, Green Lantern. It was both a critical and commercial failure. Poor reviews, underperformed significantly at the box office. Just a massive cinematic misfire.
It really seemed like it might mark the ceiling of his career at that time, didn't it? Like, this is as far as he goes.
It felt like that. And let's not forget his brief prior appearance as Wade Wilson, Weapon XIL in X-Men Origins, Wolverine in 2009.
Right, the first attempt at Deadpool? Kind of.
Kind of, a role he himself publicly criticized later, arguing that it was, quote, the wrong version and that Deadpool isn't correct in it. He knew the character even when the studio clearly did not.
So we have this string of critical misses, Green Lantern being the most famous, which, according to the sources, really positioned him at a crossroads. He was successful, sure, but maybe seen as a deeply entrenched, B-list or mid-tier actor.
Right. Reliable, funny, but maybe not a top-tier movie star who could open anything.
So what does the source material show about the level of, desperation or maybe conviction required for that Deadpool gamble? Because it was a gamble.
Oh, the conviction was immense. You have to imagine him looking at his career narrative.
Yeah.
Talented actor, great comedic timing, but just couldn't quite land the big franchise. Kept picking the wrong ones or they were mishandled.
Right.
He had the voice work. He was the lead in the Croods franchise, which did well, and the titular Snail in Turbo in 2013, but he needed a defining career rehabilitating win, something that was truly his.
And that brings us squarely to Deadpool. Okay, so we've established this pattern. High risk, high reward in his career choices, pushing against typecasting. Now let's focus on the single project that really consolidated both his career and his brand, that decades-long fight to make Deadpool.
Yeah, decades long isn't much of an exaggeration. This project had been languishing in development hell since the year 2000.
Wow.
And Reynolds became its tireless champion, its biggest advocate, especially after that botched appearance in Wolverine. He knew the character's voice, that meta-commentary, the fourth wall-breaking humor. He knew it was a direct reflection of his own public persona, the one he'd been honing.
Here is the truly astonishing part, the bit that really defines his transition from just an actor to, a player, a mogul.
Oh.
The financial gamble he took.
It's incredible.
The sources state clearly that Reynolds chose not to receive any upfront salary for the first Deadpool movie in 2016.
$0 up front.
Just to ensure the project got the green light, albeit with a smaller budget than usual for a superhero film.
That is just it's almost unprecedented. That level of self-investment and financial risk for a leading actor trying to shepherd a passion project through a major studio system.
And it gets better.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the small salary he did eventually receive, he immediately channeled it right back into the production. He used it to keep the co-writers, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, on set with him throughout filming.
Wow. So this wasn't about the money for him at all at that stage. It was about creative fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
He understood that the script, the voice, that was the soul of the film. He needed the writers there to protect it.
Absolutely, and that massive risk. It paid off monumentally. The film grossed $782 million globally.
Huge number on a relatively small budget.
Making it the 9th highest grossing film of 2016. And critically, his performance was lauded. He got a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical.
Which is pretty rare. A rare nod for a superhero comedy like that.
Totally. What seemed to resonate most with critics was just the pure force of his personality coming through. Daniel Krupa from IGN pointed out that Reynolds made the character not just tolerable, but immensely likable and charismatic. Despite spending most of the film either in a full-body costume or beneath heavy prosthetics, he just transcended those physical constraints with his humor and his voice, the things he fought to protect.
Yeah, the persona shone through the mask. The success continued, obviously, with Deadpool 2 in 2018. Another commercial hit grossed a strong $715 million.
So this established him as a permanent franchise fixture, didn't it? It gave him unparalleled negotiating power, which, as we'll see, he immediately leveraged into other creative projects and business ventures.
Absolutely. We see that leverage deployed in films like Free Guy in 2021.
Right, the NPC movie.
Yeah, where he stars as a non-playable character who gains consciousness. It blends comedy, action, meta-commentary. I mean, it's a perfect fit for his brand post-Deadpool.
Makes sense.
And let's not overlook The Atom Project in 2022, another big Netflix hit which really capitalized on his established appeal. Sci-fi, heart, humor.
But the recent story, the 2024 chapter, is truly extraordinary. The performance of Deadpool and Wolverine just redefined box office standards for that year.
It was massive, grossing an incredible $1.338 billion worldwide.
1.3 billion.
It solidified his standing completely. It was the second highest grossing film of 2024 and I believe one of the highest grossing films of all time upon its release. Just staggering numbers.
And that cinematic dominance produced this really fascinating cultural moment in August 2024. The sources noted that he and his wife, Blake Lively, became the first married Hollywood couple since Bruce Willis and Demi Moore way back in 1990.
Wow, that long ago.
To have separate films, Deadpool and Wolverine and her film, it ends with us take the #1 and #2 box office spots simultaneously.
That's incredible. That speaks not only to their individual success, obviously, but to the combined cultural visibility, the power of the Reynolds Lively brand as a whole. They are a powerhouse couple.
Okay, so now we really have to turn our attention away from, Hollywood salary reports and box office numbers and focus entirely on the portfolio, the business side. This is the true deep dive, I think. Transition from actor to strategic business mogul.
Right, because the acting success is almost the foundation for this second empire. And the foundation of that empire seems to be maximum effort. Maximum effort, yeah. The production company he launched in 2018. Initially, it signed a pretty standard 3-year first-look deal with Fox for film projects. That was the traditional route.
But the critical move, the financially groundbreaking one, was the creation and then the subsequent spin-off of Maximum Effort's marketing division.
Yes. In 2021, that marketing division was acquired by a company called MNTN Software. Now, we need to clarify for you, the listener, what this merger really signals, because it wasn't just selling an ad agency.
That's right. MNTN isn't just any ad company. It's an advertising software company. It's primarily focused on what they call performance TV.
Performance TV,
Meaning tracking the measurable ROI, the return on investment of TV ad spend. So when Reynolds sold his marketing arm to MNTN, he wasn't just transitioning from a content creator who made funny ads.
Right.
He became a significant stakeholder in the ad infrastructure itself, the tech that distributes and measures those ads. He essentially became a media infrastructure owner, not just a brand spokesman using the platform.
That is such a crucial distinction. He went from being the talent in the ad to owning part of the system delivering the ad.
Exactly. And he has leveraged Maximum Effort for these truly creative, often viral ad campaigns, famously producing those self-aware spots for brands like Peloton.
Yeah, the Peloton ad was genius.
And R.M. Williams boots. The sources highlight that he describes his own quirky element of self-aware, disruptive storytelling as the bedrock foundation of his success across all these different industries. It's the common thread.
It's that marketing leverage, powered by his persona, that's the most valuable asset, and the transactions, the big sales. They prove this brand acquisition strategy isn't passive. It's highly, highly profitable.
Okay, let's look at the big ones. Aviation American Gen.
Right. He acquired a stake in 2018. Immediately took control of the brand's creative direction, injecting his personality, his humor into all the advertising.
And then just 2 years later, in 2020...
Sold the brand to the beverage giant Diageo for a deal valued up to $610 million.
$600 million for a gin brand he owned for 2 years. Can you put that deal into perspective for the listener? What does the source material reveal about the structure? Because it shows they were buying the Reynolds multiplier, right?
Absolutely. The sources are specific here. The deal structure included an initial cash payment of $335 million, which is huge in itself.
Okay.
But the remaining $275 million was entirely performance-based. It was structured as an earnout tied specifically to sales growth over the next 10 years, contingent on his continued creative direction.
Wow. So Diageo wasn't just buying the gin, the liquid, or the distillery.
Not primarily, no. They were buying the marketing engine that Ryan Reynolds provided. They were buying his ability to maintain momentum and drive sales using his brand. They paid for the persona.
He then immediately seemed to replicate this model almost exactly with Mint Mobile.
Pretty much, yeah. He acquired a significant ownership stake, estimated between 20 and 25% in 2019.
And the connection here is kind of serendipitous, right? The source material mentions it.
It is. Mint Mobile's founder, David Glickman, actually served with Reynolds on the board of the Michael J. Fox Foundation.
Ah, the foundation connection again?
Exactly. And Glickman was apparently deeply impressed by Reynolds' disruptive marketing efforts for Deadpool and saw the potential.
So it's networking, meeting, savvy marketing instincts?
Precisely. And then, boom, in March 2023, Mint Mobile was sold to T-Mobile.
For how much?
In a deal worth up to $1.35 billion. billion.
$1.3 billion.
Yeah. Again, just to contextualize the scale for you listening, Mint Mobile is what's called an MVNO, a mobile virtual network operator. It doesn't own its own cell towers or infrastructure. It leases network space.
Right, they're essentially a marketing company with a telecom service attached.
Exactly. So for a telecom giant like T-Mobile to pay over $1 billion primarily for a customer base built almost entirely on the strength of a creative, celebrity-driven, low-cost marketing strategy, well, it signals that the brand equity built by Reynolds was just astronomical.
It's clear he's selling more than just gin or phone service. He's selling the marketing leverage that comes with his specific brand presence, which is channeled through maximum effort.
Without a doubt. And then there was Wrexham AFC, his most famous non-Hollywood investment, maybe the one closest to his heart, which he purchased with Rob McElhenney in 2020.
Yeah, this one feels different. It's arguably the most sentimental yet also strategically brilliant investment.
Agreed. It's sentimental because the whole purchase and the club's journey was chronicled in that Emmy-winning documentary series, Welcome to Wrexham.
Which created immense goodwill globally.
Huge goodwill. But it's also brilliant because of the history involved. Wrexham is the third oldest professional association football team in the world.
Incredible history.
And when they bought it, the club was just languishing down in the fifth tier of English soccer, the National League. They were stuck.
And the sources emphasize this wasn't purely transactional for them, right? They've really embraced the Welsh culture.
Oh, completely. They've actively promoted the Welsh language in the media, on the show. They even requested Welsh subtitles for his big Netflix movie Red Notice.
That's a nice touch.
It really is. They were awarded the Diolch Deidraig Award from the Welsh broadcaster S4C specifically for their commitment to promoting the language and culture globally. It feels like an investment in community storytelling, not just a sports team.
Beyond those huge exits, the gin and the mobile, his investment list is just extraordinarily diverse. The sources list companies like...
Yeah, the financial services company Wealthsimple, the password management firm 1Password, the streaming service Fubo TV, the Canadian payments processor Nuvei. It's quite a range.
And he even acquired a 24% stake in the Alpine F1 team in 2023.
Right, positioning himself in another rapidly growing, globally televised sport. High visibility.
This is clearly not passive investment. This is empire building across really diverse sectors, using his personal brand as the primary lever to, frankly, inflate the valuation of pretty much any company he touches.
That seems to be the model. He even attempted briefly to buy the NHL's Ottawa Senators between 2022 and 2023. That fell through, but it showcased a clear interest in diversifying his sports infrastructure holdings even further.
Wait, going back a bit, you mentioned he was the second highest paid actor in 2024 at $85 million. Does the source material indicate if that figure is purely film salaries anymore? Or does it include the dividends and equity payouts from all these business interests? It makes him seem less like an actor getting a paycheck and more like a leveraged equity holding himself. We should clarify for the listener which business interests are feeding that number.
That's a really critical point. And yes, while the specific breakdowns provided by outlets like Forbes are often estimates, the source material generally clarifies that these top earnings figures for actors like Reynolds or, say, Dwayne Johnson.
Right, The Rock has a similar model.
Exactly. They often do include significant back-end percentages from production deals, crucial equity bonuses tied to brand endorsements, or these partial ownership stakes like the ones leveraged through maximum effort. So, yes, by 2024, it's almost certain that a large portion of that $85 million is derived from his position as a producer, as an entrepreneur, and effectively as the chief marketing officer for his own portfolio. It's not just his work in front of the camera anymore, not by a long shot.
Okay, so let's talk about the persona itself then, because it really does feel like the central asset in this whole empire. On screen, he's versatile, sure, but he definitely specializes in those crude, sarcastic action roles, kind of culminating in the meta humor of Deadpool.
Right. But off-screen, sources like CNBC and others have noted that despite often portraying these snarky, sometimes abrasive characters, he has somehow managed to build this reputation as one of Hollywood's nicest actors.
That's quite the contrast.
It is. And his key characteristic, which, as you said, ties maybe all the way back to his childhood as the moving target, is his frequent and very self-aware use of self-deprecating humor in his public image. He's always the first one to make fun of himself.
Chris Thilk, writing for Adweek, described the Reynolds persona as, quote, Dry, egotistical, quick-witted, and slightly oblivious, noting how effectively he has leveraged exactly that for promotion. This consistent, highly controlled, and genuinely funny persona seems to give his business ventures an authenticity that a typical celebrity endorsement just lacks. People feel like they're in on the joke with him.
Exactly. And that highly crafted public image extends seamlessly into his deep advocacy work as well. His commitment to the Michael J. Fox Foundation, for instance, is intensely personal.
Right, we mentioned the board connection.
He joined the board back in 2009, and it was directly motivated by his late father's 20-year battle with Parkinson's disease.
And this is where we see that humor functioning almost as psychological armor, isn't it? He spoke incredibly openly in interviews about using humor to process grief.
Citing the need to keep his father laughing, even during his final moments. He reflected that playing Deadpool, with that character's kind of nihilistic but ultimately heroic exterior, actually contributed to his own process of grieving. It allowed him to channel complex emotions. That's powerful. He also discussed how becoming a parent himself helped him finally fully reconcile that complex relationship he had with his deceased father, adding this layer of maturity maybe to his public vulnerability. The sources show a really clear link between his performance style, his personal history, and his philanthropy. It all connects.
Beyond health, his philanthropic reach is immediate and global. Following the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, he and Blake Lively pledged to match donations up to $1 million for Ukrainian refugees.
A huge sum.
Yeah.
And then in October 2023, they donated another $1 million, this time to the International Committee of the Red Cross, to support children affected by the Israel-Gaza conflict.
Right.
And it's important here to note the specific framing in the sources for that Israel-Gaza conflict donation. They were widely cited as the first major celebrities to publicly contribute significant financial aid intended for both sides via the Red Cross, emphasizing a nonpartisan, purely humanitarian focus. That was a move that required some significant political navigation in that climate.
Sure. He has also achieved major Canadian recognition for his dual career achievements, which must mean a lot to him. In 2024, he was appointed an Officer of the Order of Canada,
which is the nation's second highest honor. Huge deal.
For his achievements in film and philanthropy. This followed receiving the Order of British Columbia in 2023. And he also attained U.S. citizenship around 2018, voting for the first time in the 2020 presidential election. So he's claimed both identities fully.
Dual citizen. On the personal front, we should probably quickly summarize his prior high-profile relationships, just for context.
Sure, there was his engagement to the musician Alanis Morissette.
Right, that lasted from 2004 to 2007. A split that famously inspired her album Flavors of Entanglement.
That's right. This was followed by his marriage to Scarlett Johansson from 2008 to 2011.
A relatively short marriage.
Then he and Blake Lively met while filming Green Lantern in 2010.
Ironically, given how that film turned out.
Yeah, something good came from it. They married in 2012. Now, the sources do detail the significant controversy surrounding their wedding location. It was held at Boone Hall Plantation in South Carolina,
which is a site with known painful ties to slavery.
Exactly. Following renewed civil rights protests in 2020, they faced heavy public criticism for that choice.
And they addressed it head-on. They issued a public apology expressing deep regret for the location choice, describing it as, quote, something we'll always be deeply and unreservedly sorry for.
And the sources confirm they took steps to amend this publicly, choosing to renew their vows privately at home in New York rather than ever promoting the original site. They now have 4 children together.
Right. And we absolutely must confirm the extremely close cultural connection to Taylor Swift.
Ah, yes, the Swift connection.
Right.
It's real.
It's very real. The sources confirm that the characters in Swift's 2020 song Betty James, Inez, and Betty are named after their daughters.
Cute.
And Reynolds himself confirmed in late 2024 that Swift is, in fact, the godmother to his 3 daughters, which indicates a really deep level of family friendship there.
Wow, godmother. Okay. Finally, we have to return to the mental health aspect because it feels like it underpins the strength required to maintain this persona under constant scrutiny.
Absolutely. Reynolds has been remarkably candid, especially for someone at his level, about his lifelong struggle with anxiety.
Yeah, he's talked about it quite a bit.
Noting that he often felt, in his words, quiet and shy outside of his performance roles, that the on-screen confidence wasn't always his default setting.
And he even revealed something quite extraordinary, that he sometimes conducted major interviews in character as Deadpool.
Yeah, I read this.
Specifically to help manage his social fears and anxiety in those high-pressure situations.
Which confirms that the sarcastic, quick-witted armor he created for the character is both literal in the suit and psychological. It's a deliberate mechanism he uses to perform when his natural anxiety might otherwise paralyze him. It's fascinating self-awareness. Okay, now we must address the most immediate and legally intense controversies surrounding his empire right now. The ongoing dispute related to Blake Lively's film, It Ends With Us.
Right, this blew up relatively recently. This controversy arose in 2024 due to conflicts between Lively and the film's director, Justin Baldoni. Seems like it was particularly concerned in creative control during post-production.
That's the core of it. Lively publicly claimed that Reynolds himself actually wrote a significant portion of dialogue for a pivotal rooftop scene back in April 2023, allegedly without Baldoni's knowledge or approval.
Which, if true, is a pretty big overstep for an actor's spouse who isn't formally involved in the production.
Exactly. And that claim immediately escalated things into a full-blown legal firefight. On January 16, 2025, Baldoni filed a massive $400 million civil lawsuit against both Reynolds and Lively.
$400 million, wow. Alleging what, exactly?
Alleging extortion, defamation, and invasion of privacy. Serious claims.
The legal claims themselves are fascinating in how they try to define the boundaries of creative conflict in Hollywood. Baldoni asserted that Lively threatened to make false sexual harassment allegations against him and withdraw from production entirely, specifically to gain creative control over the film's final cut.
That is an incredibly serious allegation.
He further claimed that she, Reynolds, and their publicist then worked together in a coordinated effort to damage his reputation professionally and personally, and to ensure he was barred from the film's own premiere.
So it's an explosive claim about manipulation and leverage, essentially accusing the actor and her powerful producing partner spouse of weaponizing their fame and their PR machine to completely exclude the director from his own film's final stages and celebration.
What's crucial here, though, is the response from Reynolds. How did he react legally?
Well, in March 2025, he filed a motion to be dismissed entirely from the lawsuit. His argument was that he had no direct involvement, really, outside of simply supporting his wife emotionally.
Okay.
He dismissed the entire lawsuit, at least as it pertained to him, as, quote, thin-skinned outrage and a pure PR play with no direct legal merit against him personally.
And what about the specific claim involving Deadpool? That seemed pointed.
Right, there's a specific detail the sources focus on. Baldoni's assertion that the new character Nicepool, who was introduced in Deadpool and Wolverine, was intended as a direct, mocking caricature of Baldoni himself. Reynolds explicitly rejected this claim in his motion, stating it wasn't true, and further trying to separate himself from the specific creative conflict at the heart of the deep, It Ends With Us dispute.
So, as impartial guides, just looking at the source material here, we simply report the claims and the counterclaims as provided. It certainly illustrates the intense legal and personal fallout that even A-list box office success can generate when creative control gets tangled up with brand power and personal relationships.
Absolutely. A very messy, very high-stakes situation still unfolding.
Okay, before we try to synthesize this whole incredible journey, let's just quickly recap the sheer weight of his professional recognition, because it really proves the quality and impact of his dual work, acting and producing business.
Good idea. So, accolades. He has a Primetime Emmy Award, but for producing Welcome to Wrexham.
Right, not for acting. For the documentary.
He has that Golden Globe nomination for acting in Deadpool. 2 Grammy Award nominations.
Grammys? For what?
For the compilation soundtracks for Deadpool 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. He likely got those as a producer on the albums.
Okay. Makes sense.
And he won a Saturn Award, again for acting in Deadpool.
Publicly, the recognition's there too. He received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame back in 2016.
And was included in the influential Time 100 list in 2017.
Critically, if you look at something like Rotten Tomatoes, some of his most acclaimed films, the ones critics genuinely liked, include that early indie hit Adventureland.
Great movie. The claustrophobic thriller Buried, which we discussed. And then his big franchise successes. Deadpool, Free Guy, and Deadpool and Wolverine. A pretty strong run, critically, in recent years.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? We started with this high school kid in Vancouver who was a self-described moving target, who failed acting class, yet somehow became this global cultural and business force, one of the highest paid actors in the world and a major multi-sector investor and owner.
The final synthesis, looking across all the sources, seems pretty clear. The most crucial element connecting everything. The acting, the multi-billion-dollar business exits, the philanthropy, even the controversies. It's the sophisticated, strategically deployed, self-aware public persona.
He moved beyond simply being an actor for hire.
Way beyond. He essentially became a vertically integrated media product himself. The persona is the product in many ways.
The source material consistently shows his use of that self-deprecating humor, and those disruptive storytelling skills are absolutely key to both his comedy roles and his business ventures. That's the common thread, isn't it? From selling gin to buying into an F1 team.
It really is.
Yeah.
He doesn't just sell products. He sells the relationship the customer feels they have with his brand, with him.
Which raises, I think, an important, maybe provocative thought for you to explore on your own after this.
Okay.
If his success hinges so entirely on this meticulously crafted public persona, the nice guy, the witty marketer, the self-aware underdog, and if he successfully sold his marketing engine, Maximum Effort's ad division, for hundreds of millions of dollars to MNTN.
Right, monetizing the marketing prowess directly.
Then you really have to consider, is that self-aware persona itself the single most valuable and maybe the least visible asset in his entire multi-billion-dollar portfolio? Is the brand more valuable than the companies it promotes?
That's a fascinating question. Is the persona the ultimate asset? Something to definitely keep thinking about as you process this deep dive.
Until next time, keep digging deeper.